Welcome back to Healthy Living for Life. Teresa, thanks so much for staying with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So let's talk about unhealthy foods. Give us some examples of what is really unhealthy.
Yeah, that's a great question. So when we talk about unhealthy foods, we want to remember that there's not a food you can't ever have again. Of course, with eating healthy, with having a chronic disease, it's something we're doing for the rest of our lives. So there's always going to be room for that special dessert, that special family tradition that you have. But we're thinking about frequency, right? The day-to-day things are what really affects our health. And the day-to-day things we want to pay attention to that can really have long-lasting harmful effects on our health, but also our immediate, the way we feel, our energy, our mood, our ability to concentrate, are things like sugar, or just refined carbohydrates. So when the thing that always comes to mind, of course, is sugar-sweetened beverages, so soda or energy drinks or any drink with added sugar. Research is firm, is solid, harmful, increased risk for heart disease, diabetes, fatty liver disease. It also, more emerging research that it also affects our mood and causes problems for people who have depression and some other mental health issues. So concentrated sweets are something we definitely want to have very infrequently. And then sodium, of course, would be another one. Sodium when we have sodium in our body, our kidney works to excrete sodium, right? But it can only excrete so much. So if we have a diet high in sodium, it stays in our bloodstream. And then our body will try to dilute that sodium and bring in fluids from our tissues. And when we have a high concentration of water in our blood vessels, that's causing pressure on our artery walls. And that makes it a lot of tension, which can cause tears or agitation to the blood vessel wall, making plaques and things easily build up. So sodium is something we also want to be really aware of. And 70% of the sodium we get in the American diet comes from processed foods. So anytime we can choose a whole food, anytime we can cook a food ourselves instead of buying something that's prepackaged or frozen and heat up, we're doing a tremendous favor to our health.
And the sodium you're talking about is what we would call salt.
Yes, yeah.
And I remember being frustrated when I see people going out to eat and before they even taste their food, they're salting it. Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming that should be a no-no as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, and the thing about salt that I think is positive and interesting is that our taste buds can adapt to more salt, and they can also adapt to less salt. So if you are a person who has been eating a high sodium diet, a high salt diet, and that's what you like because that's what you're used to, understand that cutting back, it gets easier with time, and then there will come a time when you'll go back to maybe your old way or try a food you used to like, it will not taste good. It will taste too salty. So be patient with yourself. You can cut back on sodium and then even enjoy that.
One reason I've heard people say it's hard to eat healthy is because healthy food is so expensive. Mm-hmm. So talk to us about that. Is it really true that the healthy foods are that much more expensive?
You can eat healthy for a lot less money. There are some tricks, and I feel like I am an expert on this because I have 2 boys that are growing and eat so much food right now that I have to really pay attention to my food budget. One of the biggest tips I have for people when I talk about trying to eat healthy and expand your budget is utilize beans and lentils. They are a fantastic protein source, a protein alternative to meat. And meat, of course, is one of the most expensive things we buy. So for some people, I'm from Eastern Montana. I know, I'm from beef country, but meatless meals, even if that sounds too weird, you can stretch meat by adding beans. So for example, if I'm making tacos, it's 50% beans and 50% meat, and I just dramatically cut the cost of that meal. I've been able to stretch my meat because nothing's cheaper than beans and lentils. So that's one tip. Another one is, when frozen foods on sale, frozen vegetables are on sale, buy them, stock up, because they're going to last. And then buying foods in bulk when you're not paying for the brand name, the advertising, the manufacturing, that's another great way to cut costs.
You talked about meats. How about produce? So are there tips? I'm assuming frozen, perhaps?
Yeah, so frozen is, you can get frozen on sale. And so stocking up is probably the best way, I think, to save money on that. Buying those, there's some bigger grocery stores that you can buy them in bulk, and they're pretty cheap. So that's another way to do it. And then buying things when they're on sale, which one way to do that is to increase your cooking flexibility. So, you don't want to necessarily go out and buy a bunch of food you've never eaten before, but maybe 1 week, if Brussels sprouts are on sale, you can challenge yourself to try to cook Brussels sprouts if you never have before. And the more you're able to cook and eat, the more you're able to take advantage of foods that go on sale.
So one of the things we see in the grocery store in the few seconds we have left is a lot of organic food. Is organic food really better for us than non-organic?
Well, there are some slight benefits to organic food. There's some less pesticides and slightly more nutrition. But if it's between organic and not produce, no question, non-organic is fantastic.
Thanks, Teresa, for that great information. We need to pause for another break, but coming up next, how to stick to healthy foods even when you feel like you don't have the time. Teresa has more tips for us right after this.